All right, Brian, what do you make of that? High praise.
Well, I think Trent Dilfer is absolutely correct. When you think about it, back in the day, we wanted our best players to be running backs and wide receivers and defensive backs. Now you want your best player to be your quarterback, the guy that's going to touch the ball 30, 35 times a game, have the ability to throw it or run it, make sure that you can win the football game. Lamar Jackson is that guy. He's the best athlete on the field at all times. He gets in the open field, doesn't run like a quarterback. He looks like an elusive, one of the best running backs in the league when he has the ability to run the football. I think he's special, and I think as the college game continues to evolve, which it really already has, now you have a bunch of young quarterbacks that have the ability to run and throw. You put those guys into the league, and the thought process has to be different. Maybe they may not last 10, 12 years like Tom Brady and different guys because they're not in the pocket and they're running the football, but maybe they give you help and win football games for 5, 6 years. That's going to be a great window. We'll see how Lamar lasts as far as his health, but I think if you can get 5, 6 great years from a guy like Lamar Jackson, and then towards the end of his career, he becomes better at throwing the football, now it's worth it. Now you have 8, 9, 10 years of great football. I think that makes sense for a lot of NFL programs.
To your point on the timeline, at one point in sports, I think media, fans, organizations were way under concerned about the long-term future. Forget about draft picks, forget about what it's going to do to our cap now. We have overcorrected in that regard. And now in the NBA, Steph Curry's broken his hand. That is great for the Warriors because now in 2022, they might have a better player. With Lamar, it should not be the concern about what's going to look like in 2025. What's it going to look like on 12/25, Christmas this year? It's going to look damn good. And so I agree with you 1,000% on that. To Trent's point, and it's, I think, a deeper point than just about Lamar Jackson. Statistically this season, the best 5 quarterbacks in football, by almost any metric, in one order or another, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott. What do they all have in common? Now, some people say, well, they're all black. And that's true, but that's not the whole story there. They are all quarterbacks who, partially because of race and partially because of style, would have been further overlooked, if not overlooked entirely, a decade ago, certainly a generation ago, and would have been forced to change positions a generation and a half ago. And we are all better off now that the best available talent are getting opportunities to show it, and that we are not simply saying square peg round hole situation where no matter what we know you do best, we're going to try to fit you in to a different system. People bring up Mike Vick all the time. The guy who I think had his window totally missed, and partially was on him, was Vince Young. Yeah. Man, I watched Vince Young in college, man. This guy was unstoppable. Beat one of the greatest teams I've ever seen almost by himself. And then he gets to Tennessee, and despite winning, I think, Rookie of the Year and being a Pro Bowler, it's like, well, you can't do the things that make you great. Why? And now we are allowing these quarterbacks to do the things that make them great and building offenses around them. And the entire league, the entire passing of this league and offenses of the league have been elevated because of it.
Well, I think you got to give credit to guys like Greg Roman that have said, listen, I don't care what other people want you to do. I want you to be able to run the football when we ask you to run it and throw the ball efficiently and effectively and accurately. That's what we want you to do. We're not going to take away what you do well. And many people, just like you mentioned, back in the day, they would say, well, you know what, he's just a great athlete. He's not a good enough quarterback. We're not willing to allow him to develop. Greg Roman said, listen, we're going to use your athletic ability to our benefit, and it's worked very well for the Ravens.
Yesterday, Reggie Bush on The Herd came out and said, because of guys like Lamar, I now want to let my kid play football, whereas before maybe I didn't. Now you see that there's an open path when kids are young, that perhaps they might be coached a little bit differently. Black kids allowed to play quarterback in this style that will be successful in the NFL. Well,
and not feel like there's a ceiling. Like, okay, it'll work in high school and maybe it'll work in college, but for the super elite athlete, the kids, whenever we talk to obviously star athletes all the time, and a lot of these guys at 12 years old, people were talking to them about being a pro. Yeah. And those kids have always been steered to certain positions, and it's what John Harbaugh said to Lamar on the sideline in a really touching moment where he said, you're going to have for 20 years guys wearing number 8 trying to be you. And Lamar said, Coach, coach. I'm just worried about this season because he was so focused. But it does matter. And I mean, that not to sound cliche, this is the old representation matters thing, and of course it does. But even the deeper stuff aside, just from a football perspective, we have a scarcity of quality quarterbacks, and there's a whole pool that we hadn't been dipping from in the past that we now are, and it is changing the way pro football is played.
All right, let's move on and talk some Colin Kaepernick. All 32 NFL teams were informed yesterday by the NFL that a private workout will be held for Cap Saturday in Atlanta. Kaepernick, who hasn't played an NFL game since 2016, tweeted yesterday that he's more than prepared for this moment. Said, I'm just getting word from my representatives that the NFL league office reached out to them about a workout in Atlanta on Saturday. I've been in shape, ready for this for 3 years. Can't wait to see the head coaches and GMs on Saturday. Nick, you've been in touch with Cap this whole time throughout the process. How do you think this goes on Saturday for Colin Kaepernick?
Well, I'm incredibly happy for him. I had lunch with Cap 14 months ago, the very beginning of last football season. And he said, he very flatly said, do you think I'm never going to play again? And the answer was, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's your fault. But I think you have been effectively blackballed. I don't think you're going to get an opportunity to show the league how hard you've been working. Despite that, and despite how long it's been, he still, and I know this, is working out 5, mostly 6 days a week for 2 to 3 hours every day, not just because he wants to be in great shape, because he wants this opportunity. I don't know, Brian, how real of an opportunity it is, but even if it's just a 5%, it's 5% more than he had a week ago, and he deserves it. He deserved it 3 years ago, but when we're right now, 32 teams in the league, 16 of them have started multiple quarterbacks. So it's not just the question of, can Cap be a starter in this league? If you're a backup in this league, you got a 50% chance of starting games at some point this season. Of course he's deserved this opportunity, and I'm incredibly happy he's getting it.
Well, I'm glad that he's getting an opportunity. I obviously, just like you, I think it's a little bit too late because it's 3 years too late. It's kind of weird, the timing, week 11 of the football season, just a bit. But I think he certainly is qualified enough to be a backup quarterback. Similar to the quarterbacks we just got finished talking about, he has the ability to throw the ball and run it. So even if his arm isn't working great that day, he has the ability to run the football, and that scares defenses. We saw it last week with the Patriots. That scares defenses if you have the ability to run the football. He obviously is an athletic quarterback that can run the football. The question here is, are teams willing to take the risk, which I don't even think is a risk, what they feel is a risk for bringing Cap in at this point, especially not playing in the last 3 years.
Well, and you mentioned how the quarterbacks we were just talking about. One of the red herrings people threw out there, but I think people glommed onto it, was, well, it's not that we don't want Cap, but he wouldn't fit our system.
Right.
Well, how many systems would he fit now? How many of these quarterbacks that we're talking about would he be?
The one we just talked about.
Would he be? Hell, Ryan Tannehill just started games. You know who the starting quarterback was there? Marcus Mariota. Cap plays a style a hell of a lot more similar to the one they were trying to run with Mariota than Ryan Tannehill was.
Well, Jeff Driscoll just started this past week as well. I mean, there are a bunch of guys that he should be starting over, at least second-string guys that he should be playing in their place. It's obvious that he was blackballed. I think that this is a great opportunity for him. It's good that the league has set this up. I just hopefully, and I wonder the same thing as you, how real is this? Is this a real opportunity for him, or is this putting on a show for everyone else?
And just if I may, because whenever he comes up into the news, there was a concerted disinformation campaign that muddied the waters on the actual facts. And I feel there's an element almost of opinion here. Just remind people what the facts on the ground were, okay? Before his final year in San Francisco, before he kneeled, Denver wanted to trade for him, but wanted him to take a pay cut. He said no, and that was before he ever started kneeling. Since then, they showed no interest whatsoever, and John Elway has confirmed as much. Then that season, he did not lose his job to Blaine Gabbert. He was injured, and once he got healthy, he took the job from Blaine Gabbert. When he played that year, he had 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and a 91 passer rating for a bad Niner team. Then He opted out of his contract. Why? Because San Francisco told him they were going to cut him. So it was either resign or be fired type of situation, not Cap left when they were going to keep him. Seattle brought him in. They did. They're the only team to do so. They did not work him out. They brought him in for a meeting and nothing else. And as I mentioned before, he has never stopped wanting to play, and he has never put out a dollar amount demand, I will not play for less than X. Those are facts. Now, you can take all those and still believe it's been too long, or you can buy into the distraction stuff, or say he was never that good to begin with. That's up to you. But if you disagree with anything I just said a moment ago, it's because you have bad information, and bad information has been used has been weaponized against him to keep the narrative of, well, he doesn't deserve to be in the league, doesn't want to be in the league, is too expensive to be in the league, any of those things. And I think people need to understand that part of it.
I don't buy into any of the distraction things. I think he comes in and can help your football team. There are 3 teams, Seattle, Arizona, and the Ravens, that I think, and I know that Ravens have RG3, similar style, but all those offenses fit the strengths of Colin Kaepernick. He can go in there and be a second-string guy and certainly help out if they need him to step in and play and be very effective, especially with this style.
And even if it's not this year, the Bills, if they're going to keep running Josh Allen out there, he can do some of those things. The Texans, if Deshaun Watson, who is a brilliant player, he can do a lot of things as a backup quarterback. Deshaun can. The argument that if you have a pocket passer, he can't be your backup, I thought was erroneous to begin with. But let's assume it's true. Well, then the flip side has to also be true. If you have a quarterback stylistically similar to him, then Matt Barkley shouldn't be Josh Allen's backup. A guy like Cap should be. And so I hope there is a team that shows up this weekend and seriously gives him an opportunity for next season. I'm not optimistic of that, and I tell Cap that. And it's an unfortunate story, the way this whole thing has gone down. But I'm glad he's finally, at the very least, going to get to put on film for everyone, show them how hard he's been working and where he is. Absolutely.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up.